So now I have to think about, how do I want to customize this jQuery gallery? Now keep in mind, you can have multiple, I mentioned it before, you can have multiple jQuery galleries throughout your site on different pages. So really, you don't want to think about it. It is its own web page right now, but you want to think about how does this need to insert into my layout? So maybe the space you have for your jQuery thumbnail gallery is this big in your layout. Maybe that's what you're going to do, and if it is, you're in good shape. If you planned on just taking the jQuery thumbnails, this gallery here, and setting it, basically plugging it into your page and not giving it its own background image, then we're going to need to get rid of this. And we probably want a container box around this that reflects the size of what you really want. So there's the things you want to do before you move this into the first web page, assuming you'll have multiple ones on your site, is just to get this with your images and styled in a way that you're okay with. And so right now there's some things in here that I would like to change. So I'm going to start with that. So the first thing is I have to decide how much I want to work with the sizing of this. So if I look at it, it's pretty simple CSS that's in here. If I look at it, I can see they have a wrapper div, and the only thing this wrapper div does is it gives a height to this thumbnail gallery, and I don't know that height's even necessary. If I get rid of it, it's not necessary. And then it centers it. Well, no, it doesn't. It gives it a width of auto. So as I'm looking at the CSS here for this wrapper div, this outermost div, I see I've like toggled those off for a moment, and I see that there is nothing there that I really need. So I'm going to go ahead and look one more place here, and that is in my lightbox CSS, not my functionality CSS. This is the stuff that, well, I guess I could. This is the stuff that actually makes it function. So what I'm going to do is a search for wrapper. So I'm doing Command F or Control F, and I'm just going to see if any styles are dependent on that wrapper div. Well, the first one, then we have wrapper gallery. Okay, well, I'm going to get rid of wrapper, and I am going to so we have a width on this gallery. I'm just going to get rid of the wrapper completely. So instead it's going to be my gallery, 900 pixels wide, margin left auto, margin right auto, margin top of 75 pixels. Maybe I want the settings, maybe I don't, but we're going to say that my gallery will be 900 pixels wide for right now. So I'm searching, I'm hitting find next. I don't see any other instance of that wrapper ID. So I don't think I'm going to break things by removing those. Now I'm going to go over to I'm going to close out. I'm going to go over to this other CSS and just make sure, Command F again, search for wrapper, and just do find next and make sure there's no references to it. Because when you're pulling something out, you could have a style like we just saw here where it was pound wrapper, and so that style would not work if I get rid of the wrapper div within my, my HTML, which I'm about to do. I'm just trying to simplify things. So I'm going to go down here. I see that I have this wrapper, and it says right here it ends here. So I'm going to get rid of this div, and I'm going to get rid of it up here. So now I have just the gallery, and before I go any further, I'm going to File, Save All, go back over to my browser, refresh, and just make sure everything is still working, behaving itself. Whenever you make a change, you want to come back and do that. Very, very important. All right, so we can see that there's a lot of really nifty styles in here, and like causing a heart for a background and things like that. So if I go to this lightbox CSS, which is pretty much just, it's skinning it, it's giving it, it's causing these thumbnails to float, it's making everything look pretty, and I don't want that heart. I don't know that I want that font. So my background color, my background image, do I want On body, do I want a background position of center and 70 pixels? No. Do I want any of this? Because body, if I take this style over to my, if I take these styles and put this all in the new site, this will affect the body on my entire site. So I don't think I want that stuff. And I'm going to save and refresh, and now everybody's still, now this is clean now. Okay, now I'm happier. I've removed that. I could have put something else different, you know, like right here for gallery. If I want a background image on my gallery, I could just do it to this gallery div. It's not going to hurt anything most likely. But in this case, I'm saying 90 pixels, or sorry, 900 pixels sounds good for the width. The gallery holder, which is this, right now is getting a width of 225 and a height of 250. And then the image in the background is this Polaroid thing. Well, what if I don't like that Polaroid? Could I go ahead and create a different image? I would open up Polaroid in Photoshop, see what its size and width is, and then create a different frame for my thumbnail? I absolutely could. Could I change the size of this? Maybe. You just experiment. You change the size, you put a different image in here, and then you go and test it. Don't assume that just because this looks straightforward that everything's okay. Here's why. In this jQuery lightbox, there could be something that is calculating off of what the designer put in here, this 225 by 250. It could be calculating it not dynamically, meaning it could just be hard coded in here. Oh, it needs to be this width and height. So, you know, even if you change it over here, it might not. So each little thing that you do, you want to test. Okay, I don't want these to be 225. I want them to be 200. Does that break things? Well, it'll make your, for sure, it'll make your background image look weird. Yeah, it's cut off a little bit. But so far, everything seems behaving itself. Okay, cool. I can do that. I see that, you know, I've got a margin top of 29, margin left. So you're sculpting. You're starting to change what's there. And so, okay, I'm going to work with this holder. I'm going to get rid of this background image, or I'm going to keep the background image. What am I doing with this? In my case, I will probably comment out this background image. I don't think I want this to just plug into the layout that I already have. In Polaroid, that look really isn't part of it. Oh, and when I do that, it gets a little upset with me. Oh, interesting. So we're going to Command Z on that. Put this back in and just see. Wasn't expecting that effect. So I wonder if I just did something. Oh, I did. Haha. I didn't just pull out the background image. I pulled out the float of left. Okay, good. That makes a lot more sense. So we're going to get rid of just background image. And there. So everybody should still be behaving themselves, just no background image. Because I have a website that everything looks good. Now this is starting to look a little wide, right? So maybe now I will take, I would go through and I would recalculate how wide do I want my, do I want the overall gallery to be? Well, how much space? I think that's probably where you'd start. If you want 4 across, how much space do you want in between? So you have to figure out, okay, well, what's giving if I firebug it? What is there? What is this? Okay, the holder has a width of 250, and then the thumb has a height of 120. Maybe I'm okay with that. And it has a margin left of 43 and a margin right of 42. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want that to be less. One good thing you can do with Firebug is you can just simply say, well, maybe I want this 20 and 20. And that's going to affect every single thumb in here. And then I would have to go up to my holder now that I've taken away 40 pixels from the inside, or yeah, actually I took away a little more, roughly 40 pixels. And I'm going to change the width. I'm going to subtract whatever I took off of the left and right margin. I'm now going to do that, and now things are sitting closer together. I like that. That's cool. Okay, so I'm just working in Firebug right now. Oh, now I have 5 up here. So I'm just working in Firebug. That means I would have to actually go and put these changes in Dreamweaver in my CSS. So I've changed my holder to 180. I've changed, I gotta remember what I did. I took my margin left here, made it 20, and margin right 20. Assuming these numbers, whatever you subtract here, so you would have to subtract the same amount up here on this holder width. If I'm roughing it out at 40, but really it looks like it's just a little bit more than that. It looks like it's more like 45. So I'll go up here and adjust accordingly. There we go. I'll save, I'll refresh, and this is going to, when I refresh, my Firebug changes are now gone. But now I have 5 across. Do I want 5 across? No, I really don't. So what's it going to take? And what I would do is I would actually go in and measure this in Photoshop and say, okay, how much do I need for a width in here? But we can kind of assume that we've got this holder, and this holder is 250, and 250 times 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because it doesn't have any outer margin to it, so each little rectangle is 250. So 250 times 4 is, that's 1,000. Why is this 900? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm looking at height, not width. Okay, like that doesn't add up. Okay, so 4 times 175. We'll just go ahead and pull out our little calculator here, and $700. Okay, cool. I'll take my holder, I'll just do it here, or my gallery, and say, okay, 700. Are we back to 4? We are back to 4. Automatically centered on the page because we have this left and right. So I'll take gallery and make it 700. So far I've only played with, I've removed a style, and I'm only playing with what's going on up here. Now, the overall thumbnail width is 140, and I see here that my title doesn't have any margin or pixel value margin or padding on it. So my title is just going to play along with whatever's happening out here. So that's good. What I don't like about this title, besides the font, is I don't like that it is it's not quite lining up with the image, and I'm not sure exactly why it's not, because the thumbnail itself, well, it probably has to do with the margin. So this thumbnail has a width of 140. This also has a width of 140, and it's supposed to auto left and right. You can see when we do that. So they were trying to get this thing to center automatically, but it's not. It's off. You can see it's off by a few pixels. So you can sit here with your CSS and decide, okay, am I going to fuss with this? You can see where it's hanging out. So you could then say, well, for whatever reason, with 140 isn't quite cutting it. I mean, you can come up with a number of solutions. I could look at the code for the thumbnail and go, oh, here's why. It's really actually a little, it's not quite the working out because of this or this, and I can just look at everything and determine, okay, this is why it's not centering. I could also just give it the same exact settings. We have a margin left of 20 and a margin right of 20. Well, could I come in here and say, get rid of my margin left of auto and change it to 20 pixels? And does that line up? It does. Great. Now what's happening here, because I'm getting rid of auto, is if I decide later to go back and change thumb's left margin, then I also have to change title's left margin. So they were trying to make it more automatic where you wouldn't have to do that, but it wasn't lining up. So I'm going to go to line 26 where it should be holder title and change margin left to 20. I can leave margin right to auto because it'll just 20 pixels. It'll just take up whatever remaining space is there automatically, so that doesn't hurt anything. If I don't like the space of 15 pixels, hold on, I can adjust that here in between these two. I can totally adjust that. We're going to refresh now. I'm not a fan of the Comic Sans, and maybe I want my H3s just to take on the base font of my site. So I could just get rid of this font, because when I bring these styles in, If a font hasn't been specified, but you have one on your website, body, overall, you have Verdana, blah, 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 it'll take on, it should inherit some of the styles, font-wise, that kind of thing, from your site. So it may not look exactly the way I want it here, though I could make it look that way. I could say title H3 and I could say, no, I want it to be, I don't want to take any chances here. So I'm going to say, font family of Verdana and definitely your font color and see what we end up with. Oh, that's ridiculously large. We don't like that. So, we're starting to get something in here that looks plausible. Okay, so that's how you mess with it. Now you can see, oh, we have a new problem. We have a huge distance between the top and the bottom now that we've been playing with stuff. So why is that? Well, we have this top, if you look at Firebug, we have this top div that has that much space, and then you can see that not only at the top of the div we have a lot of excess space, which is probably being applied on the thumb, and it is. We have margin top of 29 pixels, and then we probably also have on title, do we have a margin bottom? We do not. And then the holder itself has a height applied to it. Well, maybe I don't like that height anymore. So I could take a screenshot and measure this out in Photoshop and decide what that height should be. So let's just start, and we're going to say 200, and now it starts to get a little closer. That was a good guess. Maybe I'm happy with that. You just start sculpting this and changing it bit by bit. And if anything, one thing you want to do is you want to say, okay, gallery holder, holder thumb, holder title, title. Title's kind of a generic class. Are you using any of these classes in your main site CSS? Hopefully you're not. So you want to go check. And if you are, then you go, well, I'm not using gallery. I could just make this a little more specific and add gallery in front of everything. And everything should still work. But now when you bring these styles into your main site style sheet, because remember gallery is this that holds the whole thing, then in clear float you probably already have that in your site, and if you don't, it's good to bring it over. And then you can just refresh here, but this way it's super specific. And oh, I didn't change the height of that. What was that supposed to be? That holder, I changed it to 200 just on a guess. There we go. So when you bring things in, you just want your styles to be as specific as possible, so you don't end up with any styles that are affecting things that you didn't expect to affect things. So by putting gallery in front of all this, and gallery is the name of the div that holds all this, you're kind of protecting these styles, so they should only affect your gallery, nothing else on your site. Now fonts and background colors and things like that might come in just in the div that's holding the gallery, might come into play just due to inheritance and that type of thing. Then you can style out. You can say, well, when I brought this into my main site, turns out that when images are hyperlinks like they are here, I have a style set for them to have a blue gradient on them. Well, or around them, a blue border. Well, in here you can just do a very specific style to counteract that kind of thing.